innocently I thought, they're going to teach me German. Not at all. You go straight to the novel. We were reading German novels in the first week. There was no gradual approach. You just had to figure out that on your own time. That was not their job. Let's not forget, they are college professors, They're not in the trade of teaching people like me. I had to teach myself German to pass that exam in August. So you have to imagine you're all alone. You don't have anyone to help you. No teachers, no nothing. I went to my teacher. What did she say? Chris, well, cruel things. You're not made for languages. You're no good. Buy German for simpletons. There were these books out. German for... Oh, there was this for simpletons or something like that. German for dummies. That's the one. Buy German for dummies. And I actually did buy that book. I didn't understand the joke or what she really meant. But I got through it. And I scored 16, which is 80%. So I went from 0 to 80%. How did I do that? I actually did score really highly at my exam within 2 months. Hi, this is Chris from OuiCommunicate. In this video, I'll be commenting on a video I posted called A School with No Classes. It's a 3-minute video which you'll find on the website, and this video I'm making here is made for people who might, like yourself, be looking for French classes, are not quite sure if this OuiCommunicate guy exactly knows what he's talking about. He seems to know, but it's all a question of trust, isn't it? When you book a class with anyone, it's a question of trust. You like to know that the teacher knows what they're talking about, and of course you want to know that the result will be there for the money you exchange. Will I get the result that I'm paying for? So in this video, also the other reason I'm making this video here is that there's a lot to unravel. It's a thought process that started years and years ago and is a bit too condensed. I mean, there's a lot of thinking that went into it. There's a lot of experience, thinking. How can I be better? How can I be quicker? How can I be cheaper? You look at the variables such as the classroom, the benches, the student, anything, all the variables that go into a class. And you spend a few years thinking about them. And you try this and you try that. And you say, what if we read text together? For example, in French, what if we read text? What if we try to comment in a foreign language? And then I tried that method, doesn't work very well. What if I tried to be more funny, less funny, give homework, give no homework? And you're always changing the variables. And at this stage, I feel that with what I'm doing at the moment with OuiCommunicate is, as I mentioned, the result of several years of experience. And here I definitely feel I've come to the final stage of what I want to do in French. In my teaching of French, this will be the final format of OuiCommunicate. As I mentioned, I looked at what the best students had done. How did they get ahead in French? How did they achieve the best results as opposed to others who were slower? Because that's also one of the things you look at. You have to, when you teach, there's one thing about teaching that we don't often know, but there isn't a formula that works for everyone. If we had figured out teaching languages, we'd all be doing that. You'd have one style of teaching. So we're still guessing, essentially, is what I'm saying. There are theories on language acquisition, but they are theories. One of the first thing I mention is that acquiring a language is a bit like building a bridge between two cliffs, and I particularly like this image. And I think it says something about the approach of OuiCommunicate. Because different language schools, we mustn't forget, different language schools or even independent tutors have different styles. OuiCommunicate, what I do with language teaching, is it's more targeted. So we're always looking at the end purpose. The purpose is not so much to entertain. Of course I'm going to do everything I can to encourage your curiosity, to encourage your certain enjoyment for French, because I think it's a beautiful language. But it's not a hobbyist's language school that I'm doing personally. It's more targeted towards the person who wants to acquire French with a definite purpose. And that's why I use the image of the bridge. I'm in a state of not knowing French, or a bit of French, or sort of wobbly French, and I want that French. How do I build that bridge between those two cliffs, between the state of not knowing French to the state of knowing French? Can I be guaranteed as a customer that someone will give me a definite method towards that purpose? And this is what I do with OuiCommunicate. I'm not in the field of entertaining. I'm not in the field of, today we'll talk about the different French wines, or did you know that in the region of Alsace in France they this or that, or just not one of the things I do personally. So I do enjoy the French language. I think it's a beautiful language. I think it has many linguistic advantages, so when you compare it to English, certainly. This being said, that's what we do. Why do I use the image of the bridge? Because I think OuiCommunicate, when you book lessons with classes with OuiCommunicate, even though we don't do classes, but let's call them classes, sessions, all right? When you book with OuiCommunicate, you're buying several things. So first of all, you're buying my own experience in learning languages. Here's my story. When I was in college, I finished high school, okay? It wasn't easy. Almost, shouldn't say that, but anyway, it wasn't easy. Finally finished high school, let's say. I didn't pursue any sorts of studies. Let's say I sort of tried for a few months. I quickly understood it wasn't my thing. I didn't have a method to study. That's very important. I didn't know how to study. I didn't have a method. Because I think in high school, I'll be cautious with the words I use, but I think in high school it's largely, it's a passage, isn't it? You go through high school, and many kids make their way through high school and without always learning a lot, or without at least developing a method. You do pick up a few things here and there, but ask anyone what they've learned a year after high school, they've probably forgotten everything, and there's a reason for that. You do forget. So in my case, I didn't have a method. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how I got through high school, and I had the opportunity at around 34, I think I was 34, to go back to university. There was a program. I qualified for the program, and I had the opportunity of going back to college. I studied English literature and linguistics, and foolishly I chose German also, for the simple reason that German had always sounded pretty to my ears. I always found it a mysterious language. German, it sounds very I wanted to pierce that secret, that mystery. I wanted to be. I thought people think that Italian is beautiful. People think that Spanish is melodic. I always thought that German was melodic, and I know that a lot of people don't. So, went back to college after a 15-year break. Here I was, stepping onto campus, no method, no nothing, not knowing anything. All I knew is that I wanted some sort of college diploma, and little did I know. We learnt later on, but now this I'm going to tie into another important point. When you book classes with anyone, there's always a question of trust. Now the problem is the student or the customer, student-customer, doesn't really know how good the teacher is. It's a question of trust. You just assume they know that they know what they're doing. These are the variables I was talking about. There are many variables that the customer, the student, doesn't necessarily see. And just as myself, I stepped into that university, that college, which was very old. I mean, they'd been in that trade for over 100 years. So I thought, you naturally assume, of course, they know what they're doing. They've been here since the 1800s, of course. It's just a question of trust. They know what they're doing, of course. They have it down to a T by now, or so I thought. But then I discovered that not at all. So what happened with German was, it was the first year, we learned this later, but it was the first year that they ever opened that section, that German, to people who, like myself, had never studied it before. Before that, you had to have taken German in high school, or you wouldn't be let in. And because there were so few people taking German, they just thought, well, just let's open it to everyone. And they told those teachers, those professors, from now on, you'll be accepting everyone. But that's not so easy, because these teachers, first of all, were of a certain age, they were set in their ways, and they were certainly not going to redesign all their course notes for people who never studied German. So they pretended, they said, oh yeah, okay, right, yeah. So as a result, the atmosphere in German was not very nice at all. Plus, in the same class, we had native speakers. So there I was, not knowing anything about German. Innocently, I thought, they're going to teach me German. Not at all. You go straight to the novel. We were reading German novels in the first week. There was no gradual approach. You just had to figure out that on your own time. That was not their job. Let's not forget, they are college professors, They're not in the trade of teaching people like me German. So after a 15-year break, first of all, I had to rediscover how to study. I had to rediscover everything. How to sit in a classroom, how to structure, format a sheet of paper. These are things you forget. You forget that the date goes there, that your name goes there, that there's a title, structuring in paragraphs. I had to relearn everything. And so gradually I was utterly lost in German, plus the atmosphere was bad, and it was quite cruel in a sense. It was, you were meant to feel you weren't wanted. You were meant to feel that you were a problem. They much rather work with the natives. And plus, it was a shame. It was really a shame. And I learnt later on from one of the teachers, because I asked one of the teachers, I said, well, your course notes, so it was thick course notes, you have to imagine, thick course notes like this, all printed, all in German. And I asked that teacher, Mrs. Lochtman, her name is, very nice lady. How were we supposed, I asked her that several years later, I said, how were we supposed to learn German with course notes printed in German? How does that make sense? And she said, oh yeah, no, but what happened was they didn't have course notes for people like you, like me. And they just asked me, by the way, do you have some sort of structured course notes we could use? And she just happened to have that. She worked with it. So yeah, you can use mine. Of course you can. So they didn't really restructure German for people like me. So all this to say, OuiCommunicate is based on this experience. Why? Because I had to work in terms of priorities. I had to get myself through that first year of college because I had one chance to study at college, not two, one. If I failed, that was it. The funding was gone, everything was gone. So I had to put the accent on what mattered, what I could do, what I could save. Learning everything else except German. I literally dropped German. I tried for a few months. I was lost. I had no idea what they were talking about. So from September to June, I did what I could, and I passed all my exams. But my level, you have to imagine, my level of self-belief was this big. I literally told myself in the first year of college, Chris, try to get through one exam. For the rest of your life, that will be something you will be proud of. If you can get yourself through one college exam, that will be something you will have achieved in life. That's how much I believed in myself. I could not study. I didn't even know how study worked, but I wanted to. It was starting in September, December. Try to get through one, maybe two college exams. Wow, that will be something, I'd never done it, and so in the end, I did get through all my exams, but at German, I scored 0. In the month of June, I scored 0 at my finals in German, because an academic year in Europe goes from September to June. Then you get 2 months off, and then September it starts again. But you also have a resit in August, at the end of August. They call them resits, they call them second sessions, so everything you failed in June, you have a second chance at the end of August. It's not a special favour, it's just what they do. They always do it. So I had a resit. So the situation was, I knew nothing about German in June. I had to teach myself German to pass that exam in August. So you have to imagine, you're all alone. You don't have anyone to help you. No teachers, no nothing. I went to my teacher. What did she say? Chris, well, cruel things. You're not made for languages, you're no good. Buy German for simpletons. There were these books out, German for... Oh, there was this for simpletons or something like that. German for dummies, that's the one. Buy German for dummies, and I actually did buy that book. I didn't understand the joke or what she really meant. but I got through it. And I scored 16, which is 80%. So I went from 0 to 80%. How did I do that? I actually did score really highly at my exam within 2 months. And this is one of the foundations of OuiCommunicate. It strongly influenced my own teaching of French. It's a long story, but essentially I had to think in terms of priorities. I had to understand the mechanical parts of German. How does German work? What is this thing we call German? I had to understand the skeleton of German. I had to see the structure of German, the skeleton, the tools. I had to develop a hierarchy. Which are the words that are important? Which verbs? Which tenses? And this strongly influenced my own teaching of French. I give the important tools, the mechanical parts, the skeletons. I teach you the rules of the game. If you know this is what we do at OuiCommunicate, you know this, you're all right on your own. Even when I'm not there, you can build on the French I taught you or help you to learn. You can add vocabulary later on. You'll understand what you're looking for, because in German, I don't know everything, of course not. There are many conversations between natives I can't understand because it's too quick, because the words aren't known to me, but I understand what I don't understand. I could read any article in German or see the transcript of a conversation. I'll understand what they're doing. I'll know what I don't know. I know why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that's very important. So, this is a major point that influenced the philosophy, the teaching philosophy of OuiCommunicate. Now, the second thing, when you book classes with OuiCommunicate, what are you buying? You're also buying a native type of teaching in French and in English. So what I mean by that is I'm a native speaker of French and English. So I grew up with these two languages, so I can think as an English person, I can think as a French-speaking person. Now, the advantage for yourself, for someone who books classes with myself, is that I exactly know, in a sense, how you think linguistically on a language level. So I know how you're going to approach French, because a language that you have in your mind, that we all have, is like a little highway, a motorway. It's like the highway code. There are things you do, there are things you assume that are logical for you on a linguistic level. These are not things that you rationalize. These are things, you know, a pretty house, a big garden. You don't say a garden big, you don't say a house big, you don't say a view fantastic, you say a fantastic view. But you never rationalized this. You never thought, oh yeah, in English I'm used to placing the adjective there. Of course not. It's a split-second reaction. So it's on a subconscious level. Because we do carry within us a subconscious grammar. We all do. So a person who comes to me with a subconscious English grammar, English or American, doesn't matter, New Zealand, Australia, it's all the same, it's the English language, they will approach French on a subconscious level, influenced by the way they normally think about language. Well, think, not rationally, but use language. And you'd be surprised. It's really on the level of a split-second decision. People don't say, well, I say this in English, I wonder if I can say this in... No, it's a lot quicker than that. There's a part of your brain that tells you, and you naturally go in that direction. So all the mistakes, all the assumptions, I will know exactly where they come from. If I was teaching a person who had Italian as a language, any language, Italian, Tagalog, anything, I might hear the mistakes, but I wouldn't understand why they're making the mistakes. I don't know anything about Italian. I couldn't tell you if there are 10 tenses in Italian or 6. I just don't know. I know there are 5 vowels, a lot less sounds. I'm saying this why? Because with OuiCommunicate you're buying two things. You're buying my own experience in learning languages quickly, in a clear-cut sort of way, you know, with an eye on priorities. You're learning with priority in mind. What matters in French? Let's try to learn well and fast. So what matters? We're not talking about shortcuts, we're really talking about priorities. I'm not giving you easy shortcuts, it's not that. We're not trying to cheat. We're looking at what matters in a way that resonates with you as a speaker of English, because you will approach French as a speaker of English, so it just makes sense for me to explain it to you as a speaker of English, of course, because this is where you're coming from. And because I'm also an English teacher, I understand English on a, let's call it a scientific level. I can analyze English. I know how it works from the outside, from the inside. And I can do that in French also. English inside and outside. This is not to say how great I am. It's not that. It's just to say, it's just speak about the service I can propose to you. I can make your life a lot easier. I can make your learning of French a lot easier also. The third thing you're buying when you sign up with OuiCommunicate is experience. It's a certain approach to teaching. My philosophy on teaching is that I like to keep the learner busy. I think it's very important, and I don't like the grey zones, because when I said that teachers analyze everything, taking a class, between me understanding the notion of take a class and between a learner, student, who's not necessarily involved in learning, oh, I'm taking a Spanish class. Well, my question would be, yeah, but what does it mean? Person might say, well, you know what it means, it's taking a class, you know, I'm learning, but it could mean anything. It could mean that the time Spanish happens within 0 and 60 minutes later. You've taken a class. But when you think of it, I don't particularly like that, because I think it's too vague. And this is another foundational point of OuiCommunicate, is I'm not selling you time. So taking a 60-minute class with me, knowing that French will happen between 0 and 60 minutes later, is not good enough. To me, it's not good enough. First of all, we're buying the wrong thing. You're buying time, and I want to sell you skill, or you should be demanding skill as a learner of French, depending on what your purpose is. If your purpose is to be entertained and to take a friendly local class at the local, it's good, it's very good. But if your purpose is to acquire that skill, I think it makes sense to demand that skill. So next time you go to a language school and they say, yeah, our classes start at whatever, $20, $40, $60, $80 in New York an hour, well, you might be buying the wrong thing. I compared it to buying sand by the minute. I'd like 10 minutes of sand, I'd like 30 centimeters of banana, or I'd like 30 inches of banana. Or no, I don't particularly think it makes sense. Now, we could disagree on this, because I am stepping away from tradition, although not that much, because anything we achieve, you get your way through college and university by being active and by studying, not by attending. So very quickly, when you take a class, you attend. And I speak about this in my video, and I might repeat this later, but there is a danger in attending a class, because things have a tendency to shift. Like the meaning, between the original meaning and the later meaning, there is a shift in contents. Let's take the example of marriage. You married, we are a married couple. During the first week, the 2 first weeks, this is random, first 2 weeks, the definition of your marriage is not the same as the definition of your marriage 20 years later, let's say. It's still a marriage, but it's not the same thing. Going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. You go to the gym, okay, first month, you do your program, you do something. Seriously, a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, going to the gym might have shifted meaning. It might mean getting away from the family, getting away from the kids, having alone time, seeing a good friend at the gym for a nice chat, relaxing, thinking. It could mean other things. You're still going to the gym, but the meaning has shifted. This is a problem when you take a class. And I spent quite a lot of time thinking of these things, because I also followed tradition. I'm thinking, I'm a teacher, what am I supposed to do? Well, that's what we do. We sell our time. You look at your 8-hour day, you cut it up into hours. Who wants to buy an hour? That's what they do, really. Who wants to buy an hour of French? But we're selling the wrong thing, is what I believe. So the danger when you buy languages by the hour and they become a regular appointment is that the meaning of your class shifts. And what will happen, you may have experienced this yourself, what will happen is that you turn up for the class and or you might be reminded by your alarm, Tuesday, I have French on Tuesday, it's my class, it's my Tuesday class. Have you noticed how the meaning has shifted? Between the first time you signed up for that class and it becomes your Tuesday appointment, it's not the same meaning. What you produce in the class might have gone slightly downhill. It's not the same class as the first 2 times. And that is a problem with recurring classes. It's not as productive. It's not as because when you show up for the class, what usually happens, a lot of students, especially in school, well, it's the teacher's class, and I speak about this in my video. It's hello, hi, how are you? And you sort of go, what are we doing today? And I think it's a problem, because it's less productive. Well, first of all, the minutes are ticking by, because let's not forget you bought 60 minutes. Ticking by, you're still paying for it. Acquiring a foreign language is a bit like building a bridge. This is the image I like. You want to cross to the other side, you're in a state of not knowing French, you want to acquire French. What is going to happen? It's a very important question. What is going to happen? Well, I suppose a teacher's going to help me. I suppose by attending the class it's going to happen. There's a lot of assumptions. Student doesn't have time to reflect on these things. They don't have the experience. It's not their field, in all fairness. It's the teacher's job to reflect on this. What is going to happen? Ask your teacher next time, if you have one already, what is going to happen between me not knowing Spanish, Mandarin, anything, and me knowing it? What is going to happen? How long is it going to take? I can answer that, as far as my teaching goes. So, the knowledge is on the other side of the cliff. What is going to happen? How are you going to build this bridge? This is important also. Build a bridge. You are building a bridge. How is it? What's going to happen, really? What's going to happen? Attending a class? Yeah, but what? What does it mean? It's not so simple. How long is it going to take? I want to know. I might be moving to France in 8 months' time. I might be relocating my whole family. I might be retiring in France, in Belgium, in Luxembourg. And what's going to happen? I might be wanting to live in Quebec, Canada. What's going to happen? Can you guarantee that I will know French? How can a language school guarantee that? Have you noticed? I recently looked at. I chose a random country, Kenya, which I happen to like very much. I like Kenya. I looked at what language schools they had over there, and just out of curiosity, and I was reading their websites, and it's funny how none of them guaranteed the outcome. None of them mentioned the outcome. So there was a lot of information about how satisfied the students were, how many years they'd been in business, the number of languages you can learn. It was more about the experience. It was all of them, all these language schools I found. It was all about the experience. I enjoyed their websites. They were very well done. They were very professional. But it struck me that there was no guarantee when you sign up this is going to happen. But I think it's if I had to sign up for a language, I would want to know. I would want to know what's going to happen. How are you going to make me know that language? It's an important question. Because any teacher can roll out the diplomas. You know, I have my masters, I have this and that, but it might not help you. All our teachers are native speakers or close to native speakers. Great. Well, the way it helps me, personally, being a native speaker, is I've explained how it helps me. So I know what French is supposed to sound like, because I speak it as a native. I know how you're going to approach French as a native speaker. That's how it helps me. But a lot of language schools, I feel, use the term native speakers as if, you know, our teacher's really the best. You know, there's nothing they don't know about the language. Good, great. That still doesn't make them good teachers, does it? It's like taking judo lessons from the world champion of judo. Great. Doesn't make them a great coach. That's a separate skill altogether. Moving on, what is going to happen precisely between you not knowing the language and knowing the language? I can have that discussion with you. I can actually tell you. If your language school can tell you also, that's brilliant. You found yourself a great language school or a great teacher. In my experience, I don't think that many can, but it's all right, because there are different types of language schools and different types of students, different types of ambitions. Not everyone wants to do the same thing.